Shawn Ray here with Peter McGough and David Baye, moments after the conclusion of the 212 Olympia Showdown here at the Las Vegas Convention Center. And let's get right to it. I mean, this is a weekend so far, Peter, that we've seen repeat after repeat Olympians rising to the top. And what I just witnessed, while the gap might have got a little bit closer, I think James Flex Lewis may be able to retain that title. What do you think?
Yeah, I think he just had too much for everybody. You know, he was hard, he was dry, he had the muscle shots, he had the separation, and I just think he's a clear winner.
Yeah, structurally, I think he's winning. I heard a lot of oohs and ahs from you when Jose Raymond hit the stage.
Yeah, what you just said, structurally, Flex is winning. In every other department, I think Jose looks fantastic. He's as big as we've ever seen him. Maybe we've seen him just a hair grainier before, but at the Arnold earlier, he sacrificed a little bit of size. Probably wasn't his best look. I think he's at his best. He's in crazy conditioning. He's full. Looks like he's bigger than we've seen him in the past, which is kind of mind-blowing in and of itself. That being said, he just doesn't have the structure that Flex Lewis has. Flex is just too complete of a bodybuilder. But as you had stated in your intro, I think this is the hardest that Flex has been pushed in a while.
Yeah, and I don't think that's 100% Flex Lewis that we saw on stage today. The quads weren't as separated, but when he turned around from the rear, you got those glutes that are ripped and those huge calves from another planet. What do you think about the condition that Flex brought in here today?
Well, yeah, I mean, his hams and his calves, I mean, from every angle, his hams were shredded. His upper back, you know, was full and deeply separated. You know, in those back shots, I think he was carrying it away. Jose, I would agree with David. He was just that degree down from the Arnold in terms of total impact and hardness. Hide was a bit of a surprise, came in very hard and dry, but he was very hard and dry, particularly from the front, not so much from the back. And then David Henry, who didn't look tremendous when he first came out, seemed to fill out and get a lot better as the comparisons were called.
Yeah, and like Peter said, I think you're drawn to David Henry on the upper body, but when they turned around and he stood next to Hidetada Yamagishi, you can clearly see they're two different competitors. Hide's got full legs, full hamstrings, and David just fell short on the bottom half.
Yeah, David Henry's upper body is as complete, I think, as any bodybuilder you're ever going to see. In fact, you could go as far to say it might be the best on this stage. I mean, he's massive. His back, in my opinion, he's got a better back than Flex Lewis and Jose. But, you know, this is bodybuilding. You got to have a complete physique. And David's legs, despite all the work that he's put in the gym, just aren't where his upper body is, and that's always going to hold him back from really being a top contender, I think.
And he's got to be 40 years old by now. We're going to go from the first original Olympia Showdown champion to a former Olympia champion, Kevin English, who fell way off the radar here today.
Yeah, I mean, you know, old champions, you hate to see them the way Kevin ended up in the last call-out. That must have been quite degrading for him after ruling this division for a couple of so years, but you know, he did look battle-worn and was never in the running here.
Yeah. What kind of advice would you give Kevin English? Is this something he needs to hang on to? He's obviously seen better days, and now we see a lot more better bodybuilders than the former champion.
You know, as a fan and as a media guy, I'm never gonna, you know, these guys are pros, all the respect in the world. It just depends what Kevin wants to do. If he competes because he loves to compete and he loves that competitive fire, I say go nuts. You know, a guy should retire when a guy's ready to retire. But if he's competing to be a champion, that's just never going to happen again. You know, he came out a few years ago. There were some eyebrows raised about his first call out, but if you guys remember a couple years ago, he was really huge and he was really lean. So despite the shortcomings as far as his aesthetics and a little bit of a beat up body, he had a lot of mass and again, great conditioning. All that was gone. So you saw a smaller Kevin English, still the structural flaws he's had in the past with less conditioning, and that all added up to a last call out for Kevin.
Yeah, and it was very reminiscent of a former Muhammad Ali getting beat up by his sparring partner in Larry Holmes, where you just were waiting for them to get the fight over with, and for Kevin English, you just got to get the fight over with. Another guy that's noticeably down, Kiang Wang Kung from Korea. We thought he was going to be the guy, and it looks like he might have just maybe tried too hard.
Yeah, I mean, earlier in the year in New York Pro, he's ripped to shreds. Probably the most ripped athlete we've seen this year. Everything was crazy, particularly from the back. And, I mean, he was in reasonable condition, but he was a victim of his own form and success, because we're all waiting to see this ripped entity, and it didn't happen.
Yeah, could have been too much pressure for the Korean, but we're going to find out. We still have 50% of this to be cited tonight at the finals at the Orleans Arena, so they got a few hours to dry out. I don't think there's going to be very many changes between now and then.
Well, see if Eduardo dries out. I mean, that was a big story of this 212 for me. Eduardo Correa last year was insanely shredded. We're talking like 1 foot out of the grave conditioning.
Yeah.
And, you know, as Peter said with Kayong, you set the bar so high for yourself that when you come out and you're off that, it really is like, you know, letting the air out of the crowd. And Eduardo is still probably one of the most conditioned guys here, but not where he's been in the past. Now, I don't think he's that far off to where he can't dry out a little bit by tonight and move up some spots, but as we saw a second and then a third call-out, you know, Steve Weinberger was sending these guys back and sending these guys back, and Eduardo slipped a lot in those call-outs.
Yeah.
You know, if he can dry out by tonight, I think he can move up a lot.
Well, the best you probably could do in moving up would probably be to take that 5th place spot, because right now I think we're solid on the top 4 agreement, but we're going to get that confirmed tonight with the men in the open division as Phil Heath goes for number 5, and right now James Flex Lewis looking for number 4. For David, Peter, I'm Shawn Ray, MuscularDevelopment.com.